Alleluia, Christ is risen. The Lord is risen indeed. Alleluia. Welcome to St. Paul's YouTube channel. If you're here for the first time or new to this page, welcome. I'm Father Andrew Schroeder, the rector of St. Paul's Episcopal Church in Louisville, Kentucky. This weekly video message gives a short version of my homily, which I normally share on Sunday services. And I am glad you're here today. Before we celebrate the resurrection of Jesus Christ, I would like to first let me walk us through what happened after Jesus' crucifixion. So Jesus was crucified and his body was brought to the tomb by Joseph of Arimathea. His body was wrapped with expensive spice in a clean linen cloth. And chief priests and Pharisees, remembering Jesus' remark about his resurrection, went to Pontius Pilate to ask permission for securing the tomb because they didn't want the disciples to steal his body away and start telling everyone that he has risen. So the tomb was secured and nobody could get in to steal the body. And that's where the Gospel of John 20 and Matthew 28 begin to tell a story about Jesus' resurrection. Mary Magdalene and other Mary went to see the tomb, and much to their surprise, instead of finding Jesus, an angel of the Lord appeared and told them, "Do not be afraid. I know that you are looking for Jesus who was crucified, but he is not here, for he has been raised, as he said. So come and see the place where he lay, and then go quickly and tell his disciples he has been raised from the dead. And indeed, he is going ahead of you to Galilee, and there you will see him." Jesus was no longer in the tomb. He rose from the dead and went ahead of them to Galilee. Both Marys were now on a mission to go tell the disciples about this great news. We are gathering today because of this great news about the risen Lord. The good news all began with Mary and to the disciples and to their disciples, and somebody shared this great news with somebody else. The news went viral and reached all the way to us. We are Easter people. We gather to carry out Jesus' commandment because we believe in his resurrection. We believe in Jesus who forgave and redeemed us, Jesus who taught his beloved disciples not to stay torn in grief about the loss, but to get up and spread the good news by continually loving God and God's people like Jesus did. We need this good news of Jesus Christ, our risen Lord, very much today as the pandemic continues to bring more anxiety and fear to our lives. We are swarmed by the stress at the moment that puts us in a state of paralysis, that makes us want things to go back to normal where it was before all the craziness. Anything different or new makes us frightened and more stressed out. And perhaps our inability to physically gather and celebrate this day in the church is not helping us the situation at all. But I want to share the good news with you today. The good news that came from a friend of mine in New York. It's about the very first Easter. The very first Easter was very similar to where you and I are today at home. The disciples of Jesus were all scared at their home. They saw their master miserably treated and died in such a horrific manner on the cross, feeling guilty of not doing anything to stop it and worrying about what might happen to their own lives next. We locked themselves up in their home, and they were practicing isolation and social distancing under great fear, stress, and anxiety. In other words, they did not dress up for their church, did not cook delicious meals for family gatherings, and they did not go for the Easter egg hunt or shake hands with Easter Bunny either. They were at home terrified when Mary came to tell them about his resurrection. We are, in a very peculiar way, having this very first Easter as the first disciples experienced. Mary left the tomb quickly with fear and great joy and ran to tell the disciples. Then Jesus suddenly appeared to them and said, "Greetings." And they came to him, took hold of his feet, and worshipped him. Then Jesus said to them, "Do not be afraid, but go and tell my brothers to go to Galilee. There they will see me." At that point, their lives were forever changed and did not go back. Just like the disciples, we too are followers of Jesus, who died and rose for us. As much as the uncertainty of our present time frightens us and makes us want things to go back to normal, our lives are forever changed by this experience. We are not to remain in fear or anxiety, but to get up and go spread the news about the risen Lord. And we do this by loving God and our neighbors, just like Jesus did and his disciples did. So do not be afraid. He has already risen. We just have to go after him. Alleluia, Christ is risen. The Lord is risen indeed. Alleluia.